So I feel like I've been talking a lot lately about motivation and how to stay focused and life purpose and all that kind of stuff. But I want to also talk about some other aspects of my life that I'm interested in and I think would be valuable to lots of people. But I recently started rewatching this one guy's channel. His name is Caleb Hammer. So he's a finance guy. His channel is all about personal finance and tips and like that. And he'll bring someone on for like an hour and he will just take a steaming load on their awful financial decisions. So there'll often be someone coming in with bad credit card debt, or they have 100 grand in student loans, or they can't control their spending habits, that kind of thing. And one, it's really entertaining, and I would highly recommend anyone watch it just for that sake. But it's also really informative, and I genuinely have learned some things or what not to do, that kind of thing. So I wanted to think about a lot of the basic financial things that anyone can apply, and what's worked for me and what's kept me out of trouble. Because I feel like it's very easy to watch these big financial creators and they'll say stuff like, well, the best way to build wealth is to get a rental property. Or they'll just say something that, the average 18, 19, 20-year-old, they're not going to go out and buy a house. They're thinking of actionable steps right now. So I want to share those with you. And I want to make this crystal clear. I am not an expert. I am not financially trained or anything like that. These are just things that have worked for me, and maybe you can get something out of it. But always do your own research when thinking about your personal finance. Do not make decisions about your money just because some guy on YouTube told you to do something. Always do your own research. So the first thing that I think would immediately turn anyone's life around is learning how to properly use a credit card. And I say this because so many people, myself included, when I was 18, all I used was a debit card. And the difference between the two is that debit is immediate cash. It's basically like using cash, but it's in the form of a card. And then a credit card is technically not your money, and when you use it, you rack up a bill. And at the end of the month, you then pay off that bill. Well, you're supposed to, right? And a lot of people, what they do is they don't pay off their bill. And so they get credit card debt, and the interest on credit card debt is insane. Like, you do not want to screw around with that. So because of this, a lot of people get this under this mentality of they're scared of credit cards. They don't want to screw it up because they don't want to pay huge amounts of debt. They don't want to ruin their credit score, so they just stay away from it. And I think that is the wrong way to approach it, because there's several things about credit cards. For one, a lot of them offer really good perks. So for instance, I just got a credit card that gives you cash back when you swipe it for groceries. So whenever you go out and you buy your food for the week, you get a lot of money back, over time. Whereas if you use a debit card, as far as I'm aware, debit cards don't usually have any sort of perk to them. So you're not really gaining anything, right? Because for me, I treat credit cards no differently than a debit card. Whenever I'm swiping a credit card, that is my money. It's not some credit card company saying, okay, yeah, you've got $3,000 to spend this month. Have fun. No. Every single time I use it, that is money that is mine, and I have to make sure that I have it so that I can pay it off. So that's really important to keep in mind. And I think that, it's just kind of like a mental switch you have to make where, okay, this is a tool, right? This is not something that I should be scared of. This is not something that I should be abusing. Because the huge thing about credit cards is that a lot of people do not pay off the full balance. So let's say, you spend $1,000 in the month. That means that you owe $1,000. And if you don't pay off all of that money at the end of the month, then you're paying huge interest on the money that you still owe. So that's something you absolutely want to avoid. And it's as simple as just making sure that auto pay is on, right? So you don't ever miss a payment. And also treating it, like I said, where this is my money. This is not someone else's money. I have to make sure that I have the money and I have to be responsible with it. Now, the second thing that I have learned recently, and this is even more fundamental than credit cards, I think, is the difference between a basic savings account and a high yield savings account. So for context, for the longest time, like literally up until probably, a few months ago, I always kept my saved money in just a generic bank account, right? And you get absolutely nothing in terms of interest. I think it was literally 0.05% interest, which, on like 5 or 6 grand is like 7 cents a month. It's ridiculous. And so then I moved it recently to a high yield savings account where the interest rate is like 3.5%. So because of that, on the same amount of money, you might get, $20 in a month. I don't know. I haven't done the math, but you earn so much more than if you just do it, and it's free. Like, there's no reason not to do it, right? And, there's a certain element of letting your money work for you, right? And you know, I understand that a lot of people watching this are probably young and they don't have a lot of money to work with, but even just putting it in an account that gives you a reasonable amount of interest is already doing you massive favors. Because putting it in an account where you're almost getting 0% interest is just ridiculous. The last thing is being careful of very large purchases, and specifically in the context of college, because one of the most common forms of debt, it seems these days, because everyone eventually thinks about going to college, is student loan debt. And, you know, you might be of college age, or maybe you're still in college, and, you know, there's obviously varying levels of privilege. Like some people, their parents paid for college, or some people, they were academically inclined enough to get a really good scholarship. But a lot of people don't have that luxury, and so they have to pay the entire thing themselves. And I think a lot of people do not really consider the ramifications of like $100,000 of debt, you know? Because if you're going to go to college, and let's say you want to study, I don't know, you want to go and become a philosophy major, or you want to study art history, right? There is not that good of a chance that you are going to recoup that money in a reasonable amount of time. You know, if you have $100,000 of debt, which keep in mind, that is not ridiculous at all. You know, if you're going to a college for 4 years and you pay, you know, 12 to 15 grand a semester, you know, that adds up very, very quickly. You know, if you go to college and you're not going to come out of college with a high paying job or something that will return on that investment in a reasonable amount of time, you are going to be paying off that loan for decades, right? And a lot of people do not think about this. Like, I get it. When you're 17 or 18 and you're just going to college, you're not thinking about this kind of thing. I mean, I certainly wasn't. And thankfully, I didn't have to 120 grand myself, you know, because I would be so mad at myself if I knew that I was going to be paying $500, $600, $700 a month for like 20 plus years. It's insane. And I recognize that this is pretty much a uniquely American problem. You know, I know people that go to school in Germany and they pay like $500 a semester or something absurd, you know, something that Americans could never fathom. But, you know, if you're an American student, or if you just, you know, have any large expense like this, you really have to make sure that you know what you're doing. And I'm not saying don't go to college. You know, I understand that every single person is different. Some people, college does not work for them, but a lot of people, it does work for them. So you have to consider what is best for you. But I just urge you, and I really, really want people to think about, am I prepared to pay this amount of money myself? Because you do not want to screw around with that amount of debt. Interest is no joke, man. All right, so I know that was a little bit different than usual. My goal is not to become a finance channel, but I've really been watching a lot of Caleb's videos, and I'm realizing how many people out there really don't have a grasp on the basic fundamentals, and they really screw themselves with their decisions. And you know, I'm not saying that I'm a guru by any chance. I didn't go to college and study finance. This is just experiences that I've learned over the past few years, and you know, it served me well, and I've learned from other people. And yeah. All right, guys, I'll catch you later.